There are no more undefeated teams in the NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles dropped their NFC East division game on Monday Night Football to the Washington Commanders. Does that mean that we're ready to count out the Eagles? No, I'm just kidding. But what does it mean for the rest of the NFL? And, of course, we're going to get to our biggest yike of the week and take a look at which teams we're pouring one out for. Which teams are done. We're going to get to
field
all
narrows.
Yes, it continues to narrow. We got all that coming up for you on today's episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL. Your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, football fans. It is another episode of Locked On NFL, bringing you all of the daily podcast that you need to keep you up to date with everything going on around the National Football League in around 30 minutes here, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Tuesday, so you've got Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL on Twitter, myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter. You are Locked On NFL experts here with you on these Tuesday shows where we get to pour them out, to where we get to say goodbye to some teams for the season. We get to talk about our biggest yike of the week, the absolute worst parts of the NFL weekend, because we are gluttons for punishment and we're sickos. So we love to relive the worst parts of every week. And of course, we're going to break down some Monday Night Football as well. So we're going to have all that for you and more. We thank you very much for making us your first listen of the day, every day here on Locked On NFL. And we want to thank our friends over at PrizePicks, because today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You just pick 2 to 5 players, choose whether or not they're going to come in at more or less than their PrizePicks projection. Get those right, and you can win up to 10 times your entry back. And first-time users can get a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100 by using the promo code Locked On. It's over at PrizePicks.com. Promo code Locked On. We'll tell you more about them later, but right now we're going to tell you more about these Philadelphia Eagles, and maybe more interestingly, Luke, the Washington Commanders, who getting a little...
Go beat the Eagles at home. Yeah. Did you know that there is currently in the NFL one team who has not yet lost at home? Do you know what that team is?
Who would that be?
That would be my stupid, dumb Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, your stupid, dumb Minnesota Vikings. I love them.
I love them and I hate them. And they have not yet lost at home. And this is going to hurt me. And I'm going to be such a homer today.
It's okay. It's okay. It's totally
Eagles
fine.
Lost. There's 2 8-1 teams left in the league. Eagles and Vikings.
That's so good. What a wild, wild time. The thing that I really love too about like this Washington Commanders win in particular is that early on in the season, the Philadelphia Eagles were favored in this game by 11 points. It was minus 11. So we love a reverse spread. First of all, that's always a lot of fun. So we got a reverse cover on this one.
Yeah.
And the Philadelphia Eagles went to the Commanders' house and beat them by 11 points earlier on this season. Then all of a sudden the Commanders show up and then they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, man. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let alone 3 times when you're in a division like the NFC East, which is probably going to have multiple playoff teams at this point. Like, it's going to be a very fun division to watch. The NFC East is no longer the NFC Least. That title now belongs to the NFC South. Which, doesn't even get a rhyming name. That's just the NFC bad. Like, it's just not good.
The NFC bad. God, it's like 2014, that one Cam Newton year.
Yeah.
With the, what was it, Ryan Lindley playoff game? Great times. But with Washington, I
told you we were sickos.
Yeah. That was a deep cut from like 8 years ago that nobody wants to remember. No, with the Commanders and Heineke and kind of what they've got going here, here's the thing. When you have a front four like the Commanders do, and they're getting Chase Young back soon too, you can kind of go toe-to, like, you can steal one from anybody. And it's hard when you have a quarterback like Taylor Heineke, who is kind of all schoolyard, only schoolyard. That's kind of the way that David Harrison, who's on here a lot, does. Locked On Commanders and Locked On Bucks. It's kind of the way that is, but that's obviously going to be the thing holding them back. And if you really want to look at the future of the Commanders, you got to start looking at who the real quarterback's going to be. But for now, you've got a 3rd and long merchant and a killer front four that is going to keep you in a lot of games you may not be very favored in. And that's exactly the kind of team that shows up in the postseason as like a 7 seed and wins the dumbest playoff game of all time and changes the whole playoff picture.
Yeah.
That's what I see in Washington right now. And I struggle to look at other teams that may not make it, like the Rams and like anybody from the NFC South, honestly. And I struggle to see other teams that, rooting for the Vikings, who are currently sitting in the 2 seed, going, who don't I want to be the 7 seed? Kind of Washington. I don't think I want to see them.
They're a spicy team, man. And you've got a guy like Taylor Heineke, who, like you said, he does that schoolyard ball kind of thing, just running through the halls kind of play. And then you look at the way that and there's a guy that is at the helm of all this that we just never talk about anymore, Ron Rivera, who's a fantastic head coach, who is a very accomplished head coach in the NFL. And we never talk about him anymore. And I know last year he was kind of a part of a lot of different conversations because he was also battling, health and all these other things. He was an inspirational story all throughout. But I just feel like Riverboat Ron's just not a name that anyone's really spoken about at all going into this season or throughout this season.
He's the only thing keeping that organization from just straight up collapsing into Enron level disgrace.
Shredding documents. But it is one of those the fabric, the thing that holds that team together is Ron Rivera. And then you mentioned, they have some nice pieces over in the offense. They have some great pieces over on the defense too. Benjamin St. Juste is a really, really talented young corner. Yeah. Oh my goodness. He's been awesome to watch. Montez Sweat making, effectively game-sealing sacks on 3rd and longs, those sort of late and long downs. They have the pieces. And then, of course, you're trying to get Chase Young back in the fold and all of these other pieces. And so, they can be a team that surprises some people. I know Philadelphia has been the talk of the NFC East, right alongside, I think deservedly so, Brian Daboll and the New York Giants. But I don't think we should be quick to sleep on the Washington Commanders just yet.
Yeah, I think as different as their records are, the Commanders and the Giants are about as good as each other to me. And I think both those teams belong in the postseason with what they've proven so far.
Interesting.
I do want to mention real quick.
Yeah.
There was a controversial call at the end of this game that I'm sure will be a lot of discussion.
Yes.
Not the face mask. The face mask was awful. They should have called the face mask. That shouldn't have been a fumble. But the end of the game, Taylor Heineke, 3rd and long, scrambling around. He realizes he's going to take a sack, so he just takes a knee so that the clock keeps running. An Eagle comes in, hits him late. It's going to be a flag. I think a lot of people are assuming that play ended when Heineke got touched by the first defender, and that is not the case. When you kneel down, you are giving yourself up. Yep, you are not allowed to kneel down and then get up and run again. So the second your knee touches ground, everybody can let up. That Eagles player did not, and that is why that is a flag. That's a pretty easy call to me, but I know a lot of people really upset, and I think a lot of those people just think that a defender who just put a hand on it, another defender, it wasn't Brandon Graham, it was somebody else, just put a hand on him to touch him down, thought that was when the play ended, and the other Eagle that actually committed the foul touched him bang, bang, just about at the same time. That is not the case. It's when he knelt. And I just kind of want to get that out there because that was, of all the horrible calls in this game, that was not one of them.
Yeah. And we have way more horrible calls to talk about.
Yes.
That we'll get to much, much later. Or not much, much later, but we get to our biggest yike of the week. We'll talk about some officiating at that point. But yeah, that was just kind of one of those, the rules is the rules kind of situation, and it was the right call. It was absolutely the right call.
And yet he took 2 full steps. He could have come up. That was a bad play by Brandon Graham. Yep,
absolutely. All right, coming up next, who are we pouring one out for? Time to continue to thin the herd when it comes to the NFL and the upcoming playoff landscape. So who are we saying goodbye to in the playoff picture? We'll get to that as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On NFL. But first, we got some good stuff for you.
Indeed. We got to talk a little bit about daily fantasy, the way I like to play it. I don't like to join pools with 6,000 other people. How about daily fantasy, just you against the house? Just pick 2 to 5 of your favorite players and whether they'll get more or less than their projection. That is what you can get at prizepicks.com, or there's also a PrizePicks app, and it's not just football. It's like any sport under the sun, NBA, NHL, go all the way down to cricket if you want to get weird. You can find all of that at prizepicks.com. Just you versus the house, and if you're right, you can win up to 10 times your money for new people joining. Enter promo code Locked On, and on your first deposit, you get a 100% match up to $100. It means you put in $100, you get $100 slapped right on top of it. Put in 50, get 50, and so on. That is promo code Locked On at PrizePicks.com or on the PrizePicks app. Let's also discuss safety a little bit. SimpliSafe is the place to go for your home safety. If you are looking to get security for your home, or if you haven't yet, you really should be. SimpliSafe is on the cutting edge and has all sorts of technologies that can help you. In particular, their 24/7 monitoring and their home security systems that have fast protect technology, which will actually help differentiate between a real threat and like the cat walked into the wrong room, and be able to get the right authorities dispatched to you. When it comes to your home safety, that is not the time to skip steps or take shortcuts, and SimpliSafe will never do that. So go to, don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I can recommend. Get 50% off of any new SimpliSafe system at SimpliSafe, SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnNFL today. It's the biggest discount of the year right now, so don't wait. That's SimpliSafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There is no safe like SimpliSafe.
All right, y'all, continuing on with this episode of Locked On NFL. We appreciate you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day, every day. SimpliSafe is keeping us safe, but some teams are not at all safe when it comes to the playoff picture. Some of them dispatch didn't show up, man. It's just not going to happen.
They're past safe.
They're
it didn't
past
work.
safe. It didn't happen.
Safety is no longer relevant.
So we're going to pour one out for a few teams. When we say pour one out, we're talking about teams that we're saying goodbye to effectively for the playoff run, the rest of the season, see you in 2023 type teams. So we're going to get to that. As always, if you're looking for another listen later on today, make sure you go and check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast as well. Go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with the local experts, getting the insight that only Locked On can provide. You can find that on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Just search Locked On Sports Today. All right, Luke, start us off here because we have a field of folks to knock out first, right?
Right. We're not going to do this two at a time, right? So I'm looking at 538's projections right now, and I say anybody under 10% is probably cooked. Those teams include, if you want to include the Cardinals, who are at 10%, then the Browns, Saints, your Saints, Rams, Panthers, Lions, Steelers, Broncos, Jaguars, Bears, Raiders, Texans. Are there any teams in that list you would like to save from the garbage chute?
No.
I thought about it with the Rams, but I don't think
that was exactly the one that I thought about too. Yeah, that was the one that kind of came to mind that I was like, okay, well, maybe. But like the Seahawks are playing so well. San Francisco's playing really well. Like
Dallas, New York, San Francisco, Washington. Unless one of those teams goes and wins their division, and then you add, San Francisco or San Francisco. So whoever doesn't win the NFC West between the Seahawks and 49ers. And whatever two teams don't, and the other three NFC East teams, assuming the Eagles win the NFC East, one of those already isn't making it. If you add the Rams to that equation, I just can't see them going into that group.
No, I completely agree. I'm 100% there with you. And then the only other one that I think is like an interesting one to potentially watch would be, I mean, I could say like, okay, let's wait and see on the Browns, but I really don't have a lot of belief in them. And even when they get their quarterback, I'm still not sure that I really believe it. Yeah, they would have to run the table at that point. And, look, Baltimore is playing really well also. So,
yes, and we already did pour one out for the Cincinnati Bengals, which is not looking great.
That is not looking great. I poured one out for the Green Bay Packers. Also not looking great, but I'll pour one out for the. But I'm gonna, I'll bite the bullet on that.
We'll stick to it.
The big conversation I wanted to come here with today when it comes to pouring one out is the New Orleans Saints. It's time.
Yeah.
there's been a lot of like conversation around the New Orleans Saints in terms of like, hey, they're one game away from the division lead, like they can still get there and everything like that. But this is a team that has dropped games to the Carolina Panthers, to the Arizona Cardinals, to the Pittsburgh Steelers, teams that we were already pouring one out for, right? The one and only team that Matt Rule beat this season before he was fired was the New Orleans Saints. So it's tough, man. Like, it's tough. And it's just one of those things where you look at it and you go, you know what? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen for them. And that's okay. That's all right. They'll figure that out. We'll be speaking about the Saints more, as time goes on this season and what all the different things could potentially mean for them going into next year. But for right now, I think you got to pour one out for them.
I mean, you're thinking more about draft position than playoff position, right?
Well, if they had a first-round pick, I would be, but no.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's the Eagles.
Oh, boy. And it's the Eagles, too.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So the Eagles have the Eagles are 8-1, right? They're one of those two remaining 8-1 selections, and right now they stand to gain a top 4 selection from the New Orleans Saints.
What was that, trading up for Chris Olave?
Yeah, it was moving the trade up for Chris Olave was with Washington. But it was moving their first-round pick from next year basically into this year, and then that's how they got the second first-round pick where they were able to
they picked
do
twice.
other stuff. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So that's
Well, I guess then you got what you paid for. You just did it early.
Just got it a year early.
Yeah, let's pour one out for the Saints. It's over. I am taking a team that actually does have a low-key chance to make it, but I just cannot possibly see a world where they surge. And I know they're coming off a win, but you can't tell me we're getting Jeff Saturday's Colts in the playoffs.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, it's over.
It's not happening.
They're 4-5-1. Like, they are
Yeah.
super in position to make some noise. They're like a half a game out of the playoffs right now. So this might be premature, but you know what? That's what I'm doing here. All right? I'm making calls too early, understanding that there are no consequences for that. Jeff Saturday's Colts, led by Sam Ellinger, are not making the playoffs.
No.
Sue me.
It's not happening. It's not happening. There's no way. And look, I'm excited for Jeff Saturday. I love that he's 1-0. I love that he's got, his big game. He got the big win and everything like that. Matt Ryan and the big, run that he had at one point in that game and all. The slowest 40-yard whatever.
The loping long.
But it's not gonna happen. I like what Tyler Rowland from over at Locked on Titans said, which was the Titans are gonna win the AFC South by default. That's just kind of the way this is gonna be. Much like the Bucs are gonna win the NFC South by default. That's just kind of where that division is right now.
Like the second the Colts benched Matt Ryan, they sent a message to their players, we're not trying this year.
Yeah.
And the players are going to try. The coaches are going to try. They don't have it in them not to.
Yeah.
But the organization said, this Matt Ryan thing didn't work. Jim Irsay said, we're going to pack it in, and we're going to try to do something better for the quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And as the season goes on, if you are on a team like that, I think of a whole bunch of Lions teams that have done this or Bears teams that have done this because that's just what I'm more exposed to.
Yeah, for sure.
Eventually, the season starts. You stop getting to the point where you have a reasonable shot. Once you look it up and you're under 10%, once you say, all right, we're going to need to fight and grind and get to the playoffs. There are teams that pull that off and say, we are going to fight and grind and make it to the playoffs.
Steelers a few years ago.
A couple of memorable Giants teams who have done that.
Yep.
But when you have been told by your organization that they do not care about the success of this season, it is so much harder to get that fight in you. And it's absolutely not the Colts' fault. I think this is a horribly mismanaged situation. Go listen to Locked On Colts. They do not disagree with me.
You're right.
And I don't see a world where they pull together an improbable playoff run a la Raiders last year.
Yeah. No, it would be very, very tough. I can't see that happening. And you know what? I'll it'll be exciting if it does happen, but we'll see. We have a couple of teams here that are just outside that 10% threshold. There's the Packers who already poured one out for a couple of weeks ago. The Falcons are at 14%, so they're on the verge.
I still think they could steal that division.
I can't say that they can't. You know what I mean? Like just looking at
at 8-9. I mean the Bucks have lots of problems, and it's still tight.
Yeah.
I still think they can.
Yeah, and then we've got like Commanders, Patriots, or some of the other ones that are kind of on watch. Oh, the Chargers, of course. Woof. The Sean Payton sweepstakes in Los Angeles is going to be a lot of fun.
Indeed.
It's going to be a lot of fun
Patriots
this offseason.
In playoff position. I kind of thought about doing that.
I know, right? How funny. It's like, well, it's Bill Belichick and all,
Yeah, no, I can't count out Bill Belichick in November.
No, never. And so, but these are ones that we'll be watching as we, of course, as we go through. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at our biggest yike of the week. You got a little taste of one of them that we're going to discuss, but we got more for you here as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On NFL.
I got something for you to taste. It's Built Bar.
Oh, yeah.
Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar on the planet. They have all kinds of new and reimagined flavors like cookie dough topper, coconut brownie topper, and coconut brownie bar. The coconut brownie stuff has been a slam dunk for a long time with Built Bar, and they're constantly tweaking that and updating it and making it absolutely delicious. But that sounds like something that's going to totally knock you off the wagon. Think again. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, insanely low sugar and calories. You got to try this at Built. So get 15% off of your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15, LOCKEDON15 at built.com.
And I'm going to real quickly tell you about our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is specifically LinkedIn Jobs. Well, let me tell you about LinkedIn actually, just like from my own personal perspective first, right? Like I used LinkedIn all the time when I was like looking for work, looking for jobs and everything like that before David Locke saved me from the treacherous clutches of theater. I was always on LinkedIn looking for jobs and everything like that. So it as a place to go for a job board to find a job, but you can actually post a job there for free as well if you or your business are hiring. And they make it super easy. You can do things like screening questions. You can do things like put up your little like purple hashtag hiring frame to help spread the word for when you are hiring, all of that. Small businesses have also voted LinkedIn Jobs or rated LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality candidates versus all the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, family, we are wrapping up this episode of Locked On NFL. Luke, it's time for the biggest yike of the week. We're sickos. We're going through the worst parts of the NFL weekend. What was your biggest yike of the week this week?
Let's relive the things that make us unhappy. That's healthy. I am going to yell at the officials.
Well, when you said let's relive the things that make us unhappy, I immediately thought NFL officiating. First that it came to mind.
NFL officiating or at one of a few different Vikings Saints playoff games. Except the one. We don't talk about it. But look, man, refs have to get it together. I am not like a complain about the refs all day kind of guy. It is an insanely hard job. You just miss stuff sometimes. There's stuff, his knee was down, and how did you not see that his knee was down? We can see it so clearly in slow motion. Like, man, game goes fast. That's what review is for. Yeah. So I get it, and they don't always have the best vantage point. There's only 7 of them. Reffing is an impossible job, and they're just going to get some stuff wrong. And I think there's procedural stuff that we can do to help fix that problem. But, yelling at the guy is not going to be it. However, some of that procedural stuff is a replay booth, which in the Vikings-Bills game this Sunday absolutely fell asleep. I don't know what was going on in the replay booth. They were just having a party up there. Maybe the party sub got a little bit too popular. People stopped watching the game. I don't know why you'd stop watching that game. It was very entertaining. Maybe they were just
why you're still doing party subs in this day and age.
I didn't mean that as a compliment. But there was a very reviewable catch in the final moments of regulation in that game that did not get reviewed. They later kind of apologized for that, said that should have been reviewed, and said we're going to investigate what happened there. But for me, the one that really bugs me is a 12 men on the field penalty that should have been thrown in overtime with the Vikings on the goal line. It turned into a loss of 3 yards. The Bills lined up with 12 players, unmistakably. 12 players on the field. No penalty. And again, like, the game moves fast. That maybe you just didn't catch. I believe the Vikings were even in no huddle. People are humans and humans make mistakes. I get it. I'm not going to kill you over it. But the replay official's job is to be the next level of defense against that kind of thing happening. And here's the deal. Maybe I'm a little extra sour because my team was on the wrong end of it, and it does help that, like, they won. So otherwise I'd be way better. Everybody can admit that. But my big yike is that all of the levels here failed. And that just cannot happen for something as blatant as 12 men on the field. Now, if it's a face mask that you kind of missed because there was no angle, like, sure, I get it. Holding, sure, I get it. DPI, that's a super subjective thing.
Right.
That we're going to be able to disagree with, like, a lot of those calls if you really want to. There's not a lot of subjectivity around whether or not there was a 12th guy on the field. Most toddlers could have called that penalty.
Yep.
NFL officiating, please be smarter than toddlers.
Yeah. I feel like if all of your lines of defense fail and the first line of defense is counting to 12, there's a big problem.
Yeah.
There's a big problem. I'm completely with you, Luke. That is a big yike. I need to get us a sound effect, some kind of yike
Like
sound
a
effect is what I need. We'll find something. Mine is simple. It won't take very long. Mine is Josh McDaniel.
Yeah. Raiders look horrible.
Raiders look horrible. And I feel terrible for Derek Carr. Like, I just feel awful for him.
I know.
Just really, like, emotional, like, post-game presser that he had and everything. And, you know, you can see how much these guys hate losing, you know, like, it stinks. Like, you know, I cover a losing team right now. Like, I'm in that locker room and everything. Like, these guys hate that.
Yeah. It hurts. It's like
sucks.
their one chance to them, because an NFL career is on average like 3 years long.
So short, man.
You want to spend 2 of those years rebuilding after you wasted one of them on Josh McDaniels? It sucks.
Right. And then you go out there as the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. You lose to Jeff Saturday, who has no NFL head coaching experience, a 30-year-old play caller, and you drop this game in, like, embarrassing fashion, by the way. Just in terms of, like, your own execution, getting in your own way. They basically, Las Vegas, on the defensive side, just played, you know, 7 to 10 yards off of every receiver, gave up every hitch slant, every drag that they wanted over and over and over again. And if you're going to give that to an offense that doesn't have a quarterback, then they're going to take that. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, They do have a quarterback in that situation. So, like, it was just bothersome to see the way that, like, that was handled, the way that was coached. This wasn't a game to where, you know, like, Jeff Saturday went out there and put up an amazing performance that no one thought he was going to be able to put up against real competition. Like, this was like, it felt like Josh McDaniels almost kind of laid down for a second. And, like, you hate that, because I don't know if you remember. I mean, I know you do, but let's play up the dramatics a little bit. I don't know if you remember, but there was a team that once tried to hire Josh McDaniels. And then Josh McDaniels he kind of took the job, and then he didn't take the job.
I didn't even think about that.
And that team was the Indianapolis Colts.
And
then you get an opportunity here.
Why did I not think about that?
To go up against that same team. And they have a former player with no head coaching experience as their head coach. And what do?
Which is kind of precisely the point. Buddy.
Yike.
Like, that's all a very big yike. Man, it's funny. If you ever look at teams that, like, lose to backup quarterbacks, I'm not talking Andy Dalton, Chase Daniel type backups. I'm talking, you know, Cooper Rush's, guys that, like, we had no idea. Sam Ellingers that have, you know, we've got tape on this guy. We know he is not good. What's happening? It's always because whenever they can move the ball and suddenly that offense, it looks like an offense, it always feels like everything's free. And I think it's just because at a certain level, you just say, like, oh, they have a bad quarterback, they can't make any throws, let's just cover the easy stuff. And you forget that, like, nah, he's an NFL quarterback, right, man. It's like a college all-star. Like, it's still the NFL. Like, we kind of forget that the NFL is the NFL, you know, and that everybody in the NFL is a 92 to a 100.
Right.
Everybody's good. And it's just that we compress it. We live in this compressed world, so we get so used to seeing, well, 92 is the worst thing I've ever seen, and 100 is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
These guys are pretty darn good at the sport just to get to this level.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So Josh McDaniels, yikes. NFL officiating, yike. What a rough week. And you know what? Honorable mention, Justin Fields.
Oh my God, the pick six. He's got a screen that's not going well, and he just skies one over to, I want to say, Jeff Okudah on the Lions.
Yeah.
Ultimately throwing the game away.
Yeah.
Great scrambles, though.
It reminded me of, what was the Thursday night? Oh, Marcus Mariota throwing the ball.
Just eyes closed throwing it.
Yeah. It's like vertical. I mean, horizontal, rather. Not the cool way like Patrick Mahomes did it. Cross-body, cross-field, upside down type situation. It was all bad.
You had absolutely no... You cannot look me in the eyes, Marcus, and tell me that you had a thought, that you knew where that was going to go. You cannot. I'm sorry.
You can't convince us. Can't do it. Can't do it. All right, y'all. Luke, always a blast. We appreciate you, everybody, for tuning in for another episode of Locked On NFL. Hope you had fun with us today, and I hope that you'll be back tomorrow to have fun with our friends, James Rapine and Tony Wiggins, who are going to bring you everything you need to know around power rankings. Maybe we'll get some more information on what the heck happened with Eno Benjamin to just get flat out cut from the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see how that all goes. And of course, much more. Just a personal thing. Like, I highly, highly recommend going and listening to our Locked On Virginia podcast, senseless acts of violence at the University of Virginia again. And a phenomenal podcast for you to go and listen to. They are sharing some really powerful thoughts for really powerful and important conversations. Please go and check out the show. We appreciate you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For Luke Braun, I am Ross Jackson. You can find us on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL, at Ross Jackson Nolan. Of course, we'll be back with you here next Tuesday. Also, go and check out Locked On Sports today. Get the biggest stories, the take of the day, everything you need to know around the world of sports in around 25 minutes. You can find them in the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate you very much for making us a part of your day, and we'll see you here soon on Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.